So the first topic is that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem 2 is coming out in 2026. I thought the first one was a fantastic movie. It made me excited for the Turtles film again, and I definitely can't wait for the sequel. So I'm really excited to see where they go with the storyline in the sequel. Obviously, the end of the first movie, they set up Shredder as kind of like the next threat. And like I said, the first movie just was a fantastic movie. And it was a movie that was made for a small budget, so it did just enough to get a sequel. So definitely can't wait to explore more of the Turtles. And I think the sequel is gonna do even better because how beloved that first movie is. So definitely can't wait for Teen Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem 2. The next thing I want to talk about is Dune Part 2 made 82 in its opening weekend, and I believe it's made over 180 overall internationally. When you count the international numbers and the opening at the North America box office, it made over 180. And I believe the budget for the movie is only 190. And I'm just so glad to hear this. It's the first movie of this year where, to me, like I said in my Facebook post, where you gotta see it in theaters. Like, this is an event movie. And it's a movie that really sticks with you when it comes to the story and characters. Like, it's one of those movies that really makes you think. And I'm going to be talking about that movie when I put my review later today, so keep a lookout for that. But it's just a great movie. And it's good to see the box office doing well right now, because it's been a slow first 2 months this year for the box office. Like, I said on my Facebook post, there was really nothing coming out the first 2 months of this year that really felt like movies like, you gotta see that in theater. And this felt like finally the movie year starts, personally for me. I think it starts for a lot of people. It was really the first movie people were like, they were excited for. And it made way more than the first movie opening wise, so I can definitely see this movie. I think this movie's gonna have legs at the box office. I think it's gonna be one of those movies that will have the staying power where it's gonna not take big drops off in this week's in between. I think this is a movie people are gonna go back and see again and again. Hell, I'm seeing it a second time. So I'm just glad to see all the success for this opening weekend with Dune Part 2. I definitely think it's gonna have legs at the box office, and like I said on my Facebook post, highly recommend you go see Dune Part 2 in a theater. It's a movie you want to see on a bigger screen, not at home. The next thing I want to talk about is Thomas Haden Church was talking about all the speculation and rumors about Spider-Man 4, that Sony's going to do a Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire and original cast and bring Sam Raimi back. And he was just asking, and they were asking, like, would you come back to do a Spider-Man movie again? Because obviously his character wasn't Spider-Man No Way Home, but I know with him that he recorded new dialogue for the movie, but he couldn't be on set for that movie because of the pandemic. And I'll say this, I wouldn't mind seeing him back. He wasn't one of my favorite villains in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy, but I also didn't dislike him as Sandman either. Like, the biggest issue I have with Sandman and Tobey Maguire movies is the whole, like, making him Uncle Ben's killer, that whole retcon they did in Spider-Man 3, and I have a lot of issues with Spider-Man 3. That movie's a mess in my opinion. And the editor's cut of that movie doesn't change my opinion on that movie. But that was the biggest issue I have from that movie, is I always hated the idea of them retconning the origin of Spider-Man in the Tobey Maguire trilogy. In the third movie, they were like, it just felt very forced and shoot in that movie. Like, they were like, we gotta come up with a reason why Peter would wear the black suit, why he would go dark. And I felt like you could came up with so many other reasons than doing a retcon to force that in there. But, that's another talk for another day when it comes to my thoughts on Spider-Man 3. But him as the character, I overall did like him as Sandman, so I would be down to seeing him back. And I think a fourth Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie is going to happen at some point. I think that has a better shot than the Amazing Spider-Man 3 happening, because Tobey Maguire is the original Spider-Man. He's beloved as a character, and those first 2 Spider-Man movies are very beloved by people. Like, I still consider the first 2 Spider-Man movies and the 2 Spider-Verse movies to be Sony's best Marvel movies done on their own. The Tom Holland Spider-Man movies were done, was an MCU and Sony movie. So I'm talking about, like, just movies they did on their own. But I'll be down to see him come back as Sandman. The last thing I want to talk about is that Paul Dano, who played the Riddler in the Batman, was talking about superhero fatigue and a problem with superhero movies. And I really love what he said, because it kind of goes back to what I think is going on with superhero movies right now. And this is what he said. it's an interesting moment where everybody has to go like, okay, what now? Hopefully from that, everybody either breathes new life in the comic book movies or something else blossoms, which is not superheroes. I'm sure there will still be some good ones yet to come, but I think it's kind of a welcome moment. And here's the part I really love what he said and what I agree with. It's the laws of thing too. As soon as the world content came into what we do, meaning making movies TV meant quantity over quality, which I think was a big mistake, and I certainly don't need that as a viewer or as an artist. I really love that part of his statement because this is what I've talked about in my past videos. It's not superhero movies. It's not the genre that I feel like people are tired of. It's the fact you put out mediocre cookie cutter movies or terrible ones. People don't get tired of any genre, and that's what I felt like it's been lately. Like the MCU, they've been a very miserable hit track record with the Disney Plus shows and the movies lately. The DCU was a complete mess where it was all over the place and just never really fully connected with fans or non-fans. And you have Sony with a Spider-Man Less-verse, so you have movies like Madam Web, which I haven't seen, but that doesn't help the genre when you put out, from what I heard, again, I might think differently on that movie. When you put out movies like that, or The Marvels, which I enjoyed, but was a very forgettable, generic, cookie-cutter movie. Even movies like Aquaman 2, which I really was not a fan of, and I know some people enjoyed it. That movie didn't really do all that well received by critics, and most people I even talk to when it comes to Aquaman 2 would say that's an okay movie. And that's the thing, like, you can't just put out okay movies or comic movies anymore. You have to put out something that stands out, that's different. You have to put out a good movie. You look at Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Cross the Spider-Verse, and you wonder why those two movies did great at the box office and critically last year. Why the only two comic movies that did well last year is because they were great movies. You put out great movies consistently, like the MCU did with the Infinity Saga. You go back to the Infinity Saga with the MCU, yeah, they had those Thor 2, Iron Man 2 once in a while, but for the most part, they were putting out banger after banger mostly. They were pretty consistent with the track record of movies. So, I mean, even look at a movie like The Batman. It's a great movie. It's a detective noir, gritty movie. It's about, it's a detective story. It's about, how about the high, high risk people and the corruption. It told a great story. You felt invested in the characters of Bruce Wayne as this guy who's like, who lost his parents as a kid, but is kind of like so like suicidal and so lost in that Batman persona that he's become become less human. You look at the first Iron Man movie about a guy, this playboy, arrogant guy who made weapons that were killing people, and then he realizes later on, you take everything away and he's trapped in the cave with that guy he's talking to, and he realizes his mistakes. And the first Iron Man movie, why I love it, it's a redemption movie. You feel invested in Tony Stark's journey. You feel invested in him and Pepper's relationship in that movie. If you're invested in Happy, if you're invested in all the supporting characters too, it took you on a journey. You cared about the characters. And that's my thing with comic movies right now, is that you need to get back to that. Because you look at Guardians 3 and Across the Spider-Verse, even Spider-Man No Way Home was made 1.9. You told good stories. And it doesn't matter the tone either. To me, it's not about having a lighter tone. It's not about having a darker tone. I think certain characters fit darker tones more. I prefer my Batman dark. But it's just tell a good story. And I think that's what these studios need to get back to, is just focus on story and characters, what the MCU did such a great job of. I mean, one of the reasons why I think the Infinity Saga was so successful is because you cared about the characters. You went on a journey with all these characters. You went on a journey with Steve started out as a skinny guy who didn't like bullies, who didn't like people who picked on people. Just get back to telling good stories. So I love what he said there, because, and I didn't find what he said with his first part either, where he's saying, there'll still be some good ones. And look, I think there's a way you can get back to the comic genre if you just put out more consistently movies. I think Bob Iger is realizing that too, where he's slowing down on the MCU projects. I think DC has a great shot of making some great movies too, because you have somebody like James Gunn who loves the characters, and also you have someone like James Gunn who knows how to tell good stories. You go to James Gunn's filmography. In his comic movies, he always did a great job of making sure to tell a good story, to make you feel invested in the characters. So, I just love what he said here because I think, to me, I've said this in my past videos, people aren't tired of superhero movies. People are tired of mediocre, cookie cutter superhero movies that are either terrible or just very okay. If you're gonna do superhero movies now, you gotta put out something that's either gonna be good to great or stand out. So that's my thoughts today. Until next time, movie fans.